I'd like to remind you, as I always do, to turn off your cell phones or other things that ring, beep, or burst into song. Thank you very much. Our announcements before our program begins include the fact that this is the last Friday Forum of the summer. We will resume on Friday, September 8th, and the program will be announced. Upcoming events are that we do have a citizens read this Monday night, July 31st, at the City Club Commons. The book is Storm Riders by Craig Leslie. He's an Oregon author. This is an Oregon-based novel. This is free and open to the public, but we'd like you to call City Club and RSVP before coming. We have one more month of citizen salons, and we still have a few openings. As you know, these are dinners that are put on by City Club members in homes with guest provocateurs. Please pick up a brochure and find out which ones are open, and if you haven't been to one, you really should. Now, details on these events and other events that are going on at City Club can be found in your City Club bulletin or online at www.pdxcityclub.org. And if you're on the website, there's information about membership, our TV and radio broadcast schedule, and the Citizens Blog online forum. And speaking of membership, we have so many new people here today. We are going to make a special once-in-a-lifetime offer, and that is that those of you who are guests but not members that are here today, if you join, the $25 membership, a new membership fee will be waived, and we'd like you to do that today. You can do it at the table right in the back before you leave. You can also listen to today's forum online, or you can purchase audio CDs and videotapes. Check in the back again. Now, we have 4 new members here today, and we'd like to recognize you and welcome you to City Club. When you hear your name, would you please stand, and then we will welcome you. So, Alexander Bram, Constance Conway, Carolyn Larson, and Curtis Shade. Thank you all for joining City Club. We are so fortunate in Portland to have great corporate citizens that help make these programs possible. Our quarterly sponsors are Kaiser Permanente and Stoll Reeves LLP. Would you please join me in thanking them? I'm delighted that we're finishing our summer Friday forums with a most timely topic, and that is on energy alternatives. Last weekend, I, along with thousands of other people, sought refuge at the Fox Theater, escaping the heat and watching the movie An Inconvenient Truth. Some 6 weeks after this film opened, it was absolutely packed, and after a sobering 2 hours on the subject of global warming, the show ended and the theater broke into applause. Yes, we all applauded. So what was this all about? I think actually it was relief that we're finally talking about these subjects, that we're talking about the price that we pay for reliance upon foreign oil, excuse me, and oil from any source. We're talking about the carbon emissions we generate. We're talking about more efficient, fuel-efficient homes and cars. We're talking about reducing energy consumption, avoiding the rolling power shortages that we're seeing in other parts of the country. And we're talking about finding sources of energy other than fossil fuels. Our program is the latest power play in new developments in hydrogen, ocean wave, and green nuclear energy. We have 3 brilliant research scientists with us today who will help us think about these energy alternatives. First is Dr. Jose Reyes, who is 2 people down from where I am. He chairs the Department of Nuclear Engineering and Radiation Health Physics at Oregon State University. Under his leadership, his department has been recognized as one of the top 10 in the nation. Dr. Reyes is leading efforts to create and commercialize the next generation of reactors that will be safe, efficient, and terrorist-proof. His latest work focuses on the development of a reactor that can actually fit on the back of a rail car and generates enough energy to support one medium-sized city. Our next panelist is Dr. Annette von Jouanne. Dr. von Jouanne is professor in the School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at OSU. Her work focuses primarily on harnessing energy generated by ocean waves and converting it to usable electric power. She and her colleagues have developed a wave park off the coast of Reedsport, Oregon, that would be one of only 2 such ventures in the United States, or in the world actually, and has the potential to create clean, sustainable energy. And finally, on my immediate right is Dr. Roger Ely. Roger Ely is an associate professor of bioengineering at OSU. His recent work has focused on bio-based hydrogen energy systems, efficient and economical production of hydrogen to serve as an energy carrier for fuel cells in internal combustion engines. We'll begin with Dr. Reyes.
On behalf of myself and my fellow energy researchers, Annette von Jouanne and Roger Ely, thank you for inviting us to the City Club of Portland. We're excited to be here today. It seems that every time you open a newspaper or listen to the radio, someone is talking about energy, from the rising cost of gasoline at the pump to the present heat wave that's causing power outages on the East Coast. We are reminded daily that energy impacts every aspect of our lives. The fact is that the world is facing an unprecedented energy challenge. We currently live in a world with 2 billion people who do not have access to electricity. It's a world in which 86% of its energy is derived from burning fossil fuels for heating, transportation, and electricity production. This includes 40% from burning oil and petroleum, 23% from burning natural gas, and 23% from burning coal. Last year, the world's reliance on fossil fuel resulted in releasing 26 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. As you know, scientists all over the world now are looking to see what impact this might have on global warming. It's projected that by the year 2030, that's not too far from now, worldwide energy consumption will be 60% greater than it is today. The nations of the world will need to be producing an additional 280 quadrillion BTUs of energy per year to support transportation and electric power needs. Okay, quadrillion is a big number. It's 10 to the 15th. And it's not a number that you use day to day. You know, you don't say, pass me a quadrillion chocolate chip cookies. It's just, you know. But you might want to, let me bring this to home here by explaining a little bit what that might mean in terms of size. On the average, a large 1,100 megawatt electric plant will provide power for about 1 million homes. Okay? And this would take care of a good portion of Portland's residential needs. Okay? If all of the world's energy demands to the year 2030 were met by electric power, this would require bringing 1 new power plant online every day for the next 24 years. Okay? We're talking about a large amount of power. And Roger will give you some more information and projections out to 2050. By 2015, the 10 most populated cities in the world will be in developing countries that primarily rely on fossil fuels to meet their energy needs. So moving to an emission-free energy production technology for those countries will be dictated by what they can afford. It's interesting, though, to note that 6 of these 10 major cities lie in coastal regions. So the U.S. is also facing energy challenges. The energy mix for the U.S. is about the same as the worldwide energy mix. About 86% of the energy we use is derived from burning fossil fuels. It's projected that in the U.S. we'll need to build about 150 new 1,100 megawatt electric plants just to meet the country's electrical needs by the year 2025. As a nation, we have become overly dependent on foreign oil. The U.S. currently imports more than 50% of the oil it consumes, and that's about 22 million barrels per day. Oil imports account for more than half the trade deficit that has forced our reliance on governments located in very unstable parts of the world. Environmental concerns in the U.S. are limiting our energy options. Last year, the U.S. transportation and power sectors released about 6 billion tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. In an effort to reduce that number, the Energy Policy Act is promoting low greenhouse gas emission technologies including renewable energy and nuclear power. Fish and wildlife issues have also closed many hydroelectric plants, many right here in the Northwest. As the costs for oil and natural gas continue to rise, they will become less desirable for electrical power production. There are many competing factors for oil, or competing uses for oil and natural gas. Electric power generation using coal, nuclear energy, and hydro are still the least expensive. Now, the energy situation in Oregon is quite unique. About 24% of Oregon's energy needs are met by hydroelectric, wind, geothermal, and renewable energy sources. And that is actually fairly remarkable when you look at other states. However, the lion's share of the energy balance is still obtained from burning fossil fuels. So let me sum up the energy challenge as follows. The world is desperate, in desperate need of new sources of safe, clean, abundant, and affordable energy. Today, I am pleased to inform you that Oregon State University has stepped up to the challenge and that the state of Oregon has a unique opportunity to lead the world in energy innovation. In the College of Engineering, we have a theme we call prosperity through innovation. And right now, we're actively considering how our innovations that we develop in the laboratory can bring new jobs and create new industries in Oregon. I believe that some of the energy technologies that we'll discuss today that are being built and tested at Oregon State could form the basis of a whole new industry in Oregon. Clean energy systems built by Oregonians to power the world. We believe that innovation is the only way that our country will rise above the gathering storm of international economic competition. So with that, I'm excited that what we present today hopefully will encourage you, that the doom and gloom that you might be hearing about the energy situation could be set aside for a moment, and you can see what's coming up in the horizon. So I'm pleased to present to you one of Oregon State University's leading innovators, Annette von Jouanne.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today to share with you about wave energy, this very exciting emerging renewable energy source. First off, wave energy is really a concentrated form of solar energy in that the uneven heating of the Earth's surface is what creates the wind, and the wind generates the waves. And we have tremendous wave energy potentials off the Oregon coast because those waves have been building up all the way across the Pacific. And that's why we see so much higher wave energy potentials off the west coast than we do off the east coast. And when we talk about wave energy extraction, we're talking about harnessing that linear motion of the wave and converting it into electrical energy. And there are some very exciting aspects of wave energy when you compare it against other forms of renewables, such as wind and solar. And at Oregon State and the College of Engineering, we are very strong supporters of all types of renewables, wind and solar. We've done a lot of work in that area, but we see some significant advantages of this very untapped ocean energy potential in the waves. What we see are three significant advantages. The first is energy density, the second is availability, and the third is predictability. Starting with energy density, if you think about the density in water compared to air, it's over 800 times greater. That means we have the opportunity to extract more power from a smaller volume at subsequently lower cost. And that's our goal at Oregon State, is we want to see how we can extract the most amount of power from the smallest amount of ocean real estate. The second big advantage is this idea of availability. That is, how often are the waves rolling compared to how often is the wind blowing, how often is the sun shining. And we see availability for wave energy at about 80 to 90%. Compared to wind energy, we see about 35 to 45%, depending on location. And solar, we see about 25 to 35%, again, depending on location. The third key advantage is predictability. That is the amount of forecast time that the utility has in order to determine what these wave energy parks will be putting onto the grid. And a wave energy park is an array of wave energy devices that would be located about 1 to 3 miles offshore in a little greater than 100 feet of water. We want to capture that energy before the waves start to break, before they start to lose that energy. And the reason we are pursuing this as Oregon State is the state of Oregon is really the prime location in the nation and the world to be conducting wave energy. There are really 4 key reasons for that. We have 4 really strategic features here in Oregon and at Oregon State University in the College of Engineering. First off, our Energy Systems Lab is the highest power energy systems lab in any university in the nation where we can fully regenerate onto the grid as well. So we can comprehensively test renewable energy devices. Then, also at Oregon State, we have the O.H. Hinsdale Wave Research Laboratory. This is one of the world's largest sets of wave basins, a tremendous resource. And you know they're doing the tsunami and earthquake, well, also a tremendous resource for wave energy. Thirdly, we have the Hatfield Marine Science Center there in Newport. And finally, the tremendous wave energy potentials off the Oregon coast. Let's speak to those wave energy potentials now. If you look at the averages that we see during the winter months, those waves, we have averages magnitudes of about 3.5 meter wave heights in the winter months. That corresponds to about 50 kilowatt per meter of crest length. That's the raw power. Each coastal home is about 1.3 kilowatt. In each meter coming towards shore, we have about 50 kilowatt per meter crest length. Tremendous potential. If you look at our coastline, we have excellent potentials up and down the coast. We have a coastline of about 460 kilometers, okay? So you can imagine the potential. If we average out over the year, during the summer months, we have lower wave potentials, as you see, about 1.5 meter wave heights, converting to about 10 kilowatt per meter crest length. So our average is about 30 kilowatt per meter crest length over the year, multiplied by that 460 kilometer coastline, and we have a potential of about 13,800 megawatt. The state of Oregon consumes on average about 5,000 megawatt. So you can see it's a tremendous potential waiting to be tapped, and we have the resources here to be able to do that. So now how do we tap that wave energy potential? Well, the emerging technologies around the world are primarily hydraulic and pneumatic in nature. So hydraulic fluid compression, pneumatic air compression, and when you convert linear motion into electrical energy using hydraulics and pneumatics, you need several stages of conversion. So at Oregon State in the College of Engineering, our focus has been avoiding those additional stages of conversion by doing what we call direct drive technology. That is directly converting the linear motion of the wave into electrical energy. And the way that we do that is by using magnetic fields for contactless mechanical energy transmission and power electronics for the conversion. And we have built up now 5 different prototypes, but to explain what that direct drive concept is, I'll go to our first prototype, and many of you may have heard of this one, the permanent magnet linear generator. You can imagine you have a permanent magnet shaft, that's a large spar, that will be tethered, and it'll be relatively stationary because of dampers. Around that, you have your floater that's heaving in the waves, okay? That floater has specially designed coils wound on the inside so that when those coils slice through the magnetic field created by the shaft, voltage is directly induced as a direct application of Faraday's law that we electrical engineers love and use. And it's also the concept that you see in your forever flashlight, okay, where you move a magnet through a coil and you don't need a battery. So that's why we like to use that example. Now, that is one of our main research thrusts, is this direct drive technology. We're building up a large linear test bed in our lab in order to construct and really enable this relative motion between a large spar and a floater so that we can zero in on optimum topologies. So with that research thrust, we have a second thrust of working towards establishing a national wave energy center right here in Oregon. And that would be headquartered at Oregon State University for the research with demonstration off of Newport. And we're working with a number of agencies in order to realize this goal. And it would be a tremendous asset for the US and Oregon to maintain leadership in this bursting form of this bursting new industry and the manufacturing and fabrication and the jobs that would be created and the export potential that we would have. We're also working very closely with Oregon Department of Energy in order to enable the nation's first commercial wave parks to be off the Oregon coast. And we are working with Oregon Department of Energy in addition to a wide variety of agencies, the coastal utilities there, Central Lincoln PUD, PNGC Power, BPA. We're working also with PGE. We're working with manufacturers, Oregon Iron Works, SAIC. We have just a tremendous asset in collaboration here. We're also working very closely with the crabbers and fishermen. Those commercial crabbers and fishermen, they are making a strong livelihood, and they are helping us identify optimum sites that would have minimum impact on their industry and also provide their expertise on survivability there in this harsh ocean environment. So finally, I'd also like to thank Oregon Sea Grant for their support, and if you're interested, more interested in wave energy, they have produced a wave energy DVD. They followed us around for about a year, and it covers a wide variety of areas, and you can contact Oregon Sea Grant to receive that. So thank you all for being here and for your interest in this exciting area.
Thank you, President Hammer, for that introduction earlier. Thank you, Jose and Annette, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation for being invited to speak with you today. And to those of you listening on OPB or watching on one of the television channels, thank you for your interest as well. I think it is appropriate to give you a brief explanation of the perspectives or vantage points that have shaped the lens through which I view energy matters. This will allow you, as you listen, to apply whatever correction factors you may deem appropriate. I speak to you first as an engineer. My bias is to think in terms of practical engineering solutions to challenges. I began working at CH2M Hill in 1977 while still an engineering student in the College of Engineering at OSU, providing consulting engineering services for industrial clients. I have been a licensed professional engineer in the state of Oregon since 1982, and I've worked 12 years in private industry and 17 years in academic research and teaching. I don't see any of my former students here, though, so that's good. Also, as an environmental engineer, now a member of an ecological engineering department, I view energy issues with an ecological systems perspective. I think it is a truism that energy is the lifeblood of modern technological societies. But from an ecological systems perspective, the ways in which we obtain and use energy are entirely unnatural and unsustainable. And that concerns me because of the resultant costs that always accrue. There truly is no such thing as a free lunch. So how much energy do we need? Jose mentioned this, but generally I find that when I tell people that we will need 10 to 50 terawatts of new power generating capacity by the year 2050, their eyes glaze over. But what if I said that if we used medium-sized 500 megawatt power plants to get that 10 to 50 terawatts of power generating capacity, whether they are coal-fired, natural gas-fired, or nuclear, we would need to build 22,000 to 110,000 of them between now and 2050. Actually, we would need to build them between now and 2040 because they only have a 30-year life. That means commissioning 2 to 10 new power plants every day for 30 years, at which point we would need to begin replacing them at the same rate or higher and decommissioning the old ones. This is why Nobel laureate Richard Smalley said, "Energy may very well be the single most critical challenge facing humanity in this century." Now, to spark your thinking in a different direction, it's time for a quiz. Put away your books, take out a clean sheet of paper. You haven't heard that for a while, right? Okay, I'll be surprised if anyone knows the answer, but here goes. How much is 1 hour of sunshine worth in cold, hard cash? Here's a hint. The solar energy that strikes the Earth each hour is sufficient to meet global energy needs for a year. While the surface of the Earth receives a constant solar power flow of 126,000 terawatts, and 1 hour's worth of that power, if it could be turned into $3 per gallon gasoline, would be worth $10.4 trillion. To put that number into context, the world currently spends about $5 trillion each year on all forms of energy, and the total gross world product is on the order of $50 to $70 trillion. But that's how much free energy the sun gives us every hour of every day. Okay, I know what you're thinking, but we can't turn sunshine into gasoline, especially at 100% efficiency. And you're right, at least partially. But with that much power available to us, we only need to harvest a small fraction. And ladies and gentlemen, we can turn that solar energy into something better than gasoline. When I started looking into these issues about 6 or 7 years ago, I learned that several species of algae and cyanobacteria, formerly called blue-green algae, have developed sophisticated biochemical systems to capture solar energy and use it to split water and make hydrogen in a process that is completely natural. It happens all around us every day. And their ways are so elegant that they can accomplish this marvelous feat at room temperature. Because of the magic of enzymes, they don't need extremely high temperatures as non-biological processes do. And they can do it with a maximum thermodynamic efficiency of a little over 40%. But is this really that surprising? I mean, after all, nature has been conducting R&D on solar energy capture and hydrogen conversions for about 4 billion years. In my lab at OSU, we are working to learn from and imitate nature by using biological molecules and processes to harvest solar energy and convert it directly to hydrogen. We want to develop systems that will be environmentally sustainable and benign, using primarily carbon, water, and sunlight, and producing hydrogen and oxygen. We are pursuing several ideas and avenues that I won't have time to talk about today, but if you'd like to know more, or if you'd like a longer presentation, please let me know. I love to talk about these things, and I can barely get started in 12 minutes. There are 2 questions that you may be asking. First, why hydrogen? In nature, hydrogen serves as a universal energy currency. It can be produced from many different feedstocks, including water, in essentially unlimited quantities, and it is very energy rich. Pound for pound, hydrogen contains about 3 times as much energy as gasoline or diesel, for example. Hydrogen is clean. When burned or used in an electrochemical fuel cell, water is the only product. Also, hydrogen and electricity complement each other. Like electricity, or like oil or coal for that matter, hydrogen is an energy carrier. Compared to electricity, however, hydrogen is easier to store, which makes it more compatible with transportation uses. Electricity can be made from hydrogen, and hydrogen can be made from electricity, in a reversible fuel cell, for example. This flexibility is valuable for getting the most out of existing energy technology and for creating versatile energy systems in the future. Another important point is that although we're only in the infancy of hydrogen-based technologies, hydrogen energy systems are already much more efficient than fossil fuel technologies. After more than 100 years of R&D, the tank-to-wheel efficiency of a gasoline-powered vehicle is only about 16%, for example, whereas hydrogen fuel cell vehicles already can achieve 50% efficiency or more. The second question you may be asking is, why make hydrogen directly from solar energy? Why not make electricity first, and then use the electricity to make hydrogen by electrolyzing water? After all, we already have those technologies. The answer is efficiency and cost. Today's PV cells operate at efficiencies ranging from about 5 to 15%. Then the electrolysis process is about 80% efficient. So overall hydrogen production efficiency by this approach is only about 4 to 12%. Remember, I told you that the maximum thermodynamic efficiency of hydrogen production by cyanobacteria is over 40%. Also, today's conventional PV cells are expensive, so it is much more expensive to produce hydrogen by electrolysis using solar cells than by other methods. Now I want to shift gears and talk just briefly about distributed micropower approaches. In the late 1800s, Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla engaged in a fierce battle. Edison favored low voltage direct current and had already established many standalone, what we would call today, micro power plants in homes and offices around New York City. Tesla favored high voltage alternating current and large centralized power plants with power transmitted to homes and businesses over large distances. Of course, you know that Tesla won the fight with the backing of George Westinghouse, and grid electrification based on AC technology eventually extended across the country. But folks, just as the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike, that $10 trillion worth of sunshine we get every hour is distributed power. It's not centralized. Small power systems that can take advantage of distributed solar energy, coupled with energy storage in the form of hydrogen, can avoid both the huge capital costs and the inefficiencies of the distribution grid. I'd like to leave you with this thought. I believe we are living at a unique time in human history, where we are witnessing the convergence of 4 large trends related to energy. First, environmental damage, including global climate change, is conspicuously apparent from our past and current energy use habits. We have to change our ways or risk destroying our own life support systems. Second, concerns about energy security, competition, and geopolitical tensions will continue to escalate as population increases and economics and economies in other parts of the world grow and demand more energy. Third, as Jose said earlier, over 2 billion of the world's residents have no electricity, and about 3 billion get by on less than $2 per day, compared to the US average of about $120 per capita per day. The social needs are tremendous, and improving healthcare, education, nutrition, almost any issue you can name will require energy, and lots of it. But along with these compelling needs, we are experiencing a more hopeful fourth trend of rapidly growing capabilities in science and technology. For example, in molecular biology, microelectronics, nanoscience, and microtechnology. So much so that I think it is impossible for us to imagine the changes we will see over the next 25 years. To illustrate, think back 25 years to 1981. Would you have been able to predict the things that are part of our world today, like personal computers, laptops, PDAs, cell phones, vastly improved medical treatments and technologies? In a talk he gave at Yale in 2002, my friend Ralph Peterson, Chairman, President, and CEO of CH2M Hill, showed that the world will need to create the equivalent of 10 new US economies over the next few decades. This, along with the trends I described, indicates the tremendous opportunity we have, ladies and gentlemen, to participate in developing vast new economic activity based on new technologies like solar biohydrogen-based micropower systems, technologies not yet owned by someone else. And I'm confident that they will be developed in the near future. And I see no reason why Oregon, in keeping with the best traditions of our progressive mystique of environmental sustainability, cannot lead the world in this work. With a global energy market of $5 trillion, even capturing a relatively small market share would contribute billions to our economy. But we must be willing to make a commitment and to carry it through. A point I like to make is that the Stone Age did not end because we ran out of rocks. We are leaving one energy era, ladies and gentlemen, and entering a new one. And to quote personal computer pioneer Alan Kay, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now it's your turn. We come to the part of our program where members can ask questions. And as you know, in this context,
Sorry, I didn't get to present mine.
oh, I guess we haven't.
Thank you very much. Now is the portion where we speak about nuclear power and some of the progress we're making there. I know it was a little confusing because of the order, but thank you. I'm going to tantalize you with a vision of vast supplies of energy, far surpassing the wildest desires of the engineer. Resources so illimitable that the idea of fuel economy is not to be thought of. These were the remarkable words of Arthur Eddington. It was 1930 in Berlin. He was addressing the World Power Conference. And he even before the idea of a nuclear reactor had been developed, he was already foreseeing into the future and said, you know, if we could harness the energy of an atom, it would change the world. It stirred the imagination of every engineer present, and the challenge was clear. Find a practical means of accessing, controlling, and safely using the enormous energy locked in the atom for the benefit of mankind. Well, if you, and actually I always carry this little fuel pellet with me. I don't leave home without it. About the size of a penny, the height of a penny, and the diameter of that fuel pellet is about the diameter of a pencil. Really small, about that big. The energy content in that one tiny fuel pellet of uranium is equivalent to 1,780 pounds of coal, nearly a ton of coal. It's equivalent to about 159 gallons of oil, about 3 barrels of oil, and 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas. That's why nuclear is around, because of the tremendous energy potential in such a small volume. The advantages of nuclear power are significant. It's the most compact form of large-scale energy production. It has one of the lowest power production costs on the market, and it produces no greenhouse gases. The current U.S. fleet of 103 nuclear plants operate at a capacity factor of over 90%. The top quarter of them operate close to 97%. That makes it one of the most reliable forms of power generation on the grid. Now, the first nuclear reactor in the state of Oregon was constructed in 1959, and that was at Oregon State University, and it was part of Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace program. As we approach our 50th anniversary, I'm pleased to inform you that we have remained faithful to Eddington's vision. Oregon State University has played a key role in ushering a new generation of passively safe nuclear power plants. To be certified in the United States as a passively safe plant, it must be demonstrated by rigorous testing and by computer code calculation that under the worst-case accident conditions, the plant will safely cool itself down for a minimum of 3 days without operator intervention or external power. Now, passive safety systems can provide cooling to the reactor core by buoyancy-driven natural circulation, gravity draining of elevated water tanks, pre-pressurized coolant injection tanks, a whole range of passive safety systems. And the idea is that as long as you have gravity, which hopefully we'll always have, you'll be okay. They do not require active pumps or any external power supplies. Passive safety systems offer a greater level of safety and reliability with significantly smaller number of components and a reduced cost. Only 2 nuclear power plant designs in the world have been certified as passively safe, the Westinghouse AP600 and the Westinghouse AP1000. Certification tests for both of those designs were conducted at Oregon State University. We had some help. Harris Thermal from Newburgh and TIC, the industrial company from Tualatin, also helped us in that testing program. So Oregonians we have a tradition of being an energy generating energy research state. The AP1000 is capable of producing 1,000 megawatts electric. It's projected to have a construction cost between $1,200 and $1,400 per kilowatt of installed capacity. And that's comparable to the cost of a large fossil fuel plant. Our OSU research team successfully conducted 97 integral system tests in support of the certification for those designs. Westinghouse is now marketing that design worldwide. A recent article I saw in Forbes magazine indicated that as many as 12 AP1000 plants are being considered for near-term deployment, next 5 to 7 years, in the United States. It's remarkable what a university can do when given a challenge of national significance. Now, more recently, Oregon State University, Idaho National Laboratory, and Nexent, it's a subsidiary of Bechtel, were tasked by the U.S. Department of Energy to design a small, highly economic, passively safe nuclear reactor. And they wanted this design to work for a wide range of applications, power production, district heating, desalinization, a whole range of applications. And we believe we've been successful. It's called the Multi-Application Small Light Water Reactor. And of course, the scientists would come up with a name like that because it's very long, hard to pronounce. It doesn't have a very good acronym, but there you have it, the Multi-Application Small Light Water Reactor. And it's unique for 4 reasons, because of its simplicity, its safety, its security, and its economy. Now, this reactor is actually a self-contained reactor. And so let me describe it a little bit here. Imagine, if you would, a reactor vessel. It looks kind of like a capsule. It's made of metal. And inside that reactor vessel, you have the nuclear fuel, but you also have the heat exchanger, the steam generator, which produces steam, and everything is bundled into one capsule, a steel reactor vessel. You have one line coming in for water and one line coming out for steam. That reactor vessel sits inside of a containment. That containment is actually fairly small. It's 60 feet in length, about 14 feet in diameter. It'll fit on a rail car, and it can withstand very high pressures. Now you take your reactor vessel, which sits inside of the containment shell, which then sits inside of a pool. And that pool sits underground, and so it's a very low-profile system. In fact, you wouldn't even know it was a nuclear power plant. It would look like an industrial building. So now you have a reactor which sits in a pool of water. That pool of water also acts as a passive safety system for that design. So we've combined all the features. We've eliminated basically all the external piping except for one water line coming in, steam line coming out. We designed this plant so that it would operate continuously for 5 years. There's no pumps inside the system. It works with natural circulation. So in terms of maintenance and components, there's basically essentially very few internal to the system. We decided to go with off-the-shelf parts. It uses a single low-pressure turbine, which can be bought off the shelf. And the nice thing about this design, in terms of its simplicity, is that it could be built right here in Oregon. The reactor module, which consists of the containment, its contents, can entirely be fabricated within the capabilities of shops right here in Oregon. What we're doing is trying to revolutionize how the nuclear business works. Currently, if you want to build a nuclear power plant, you need to fill out an application, and the first thing you want to do is order a vessel from France, because the capabilities right now are in France. These large diameter vessels, which the U.S. was so good at building in the past, now there's only one shop in the U.S. that can do that, and most of the reactor vessels that are being built at fabrication sites in France. But if you go to a smaller technology, we're talking about some of these vessels could be 8 feet in diameter to 6 feet in diameter. That is well within the capability of what I have seen and personally observed at many of the locations here in Oregon. These components could be built right here and create a whole new economy, a whole new industry rather, right here in Oregon. So we're very excited about the fact that these simple systems actually open up the market to additional competition in terms of fabrication. Compared to a typical pressurized water reactor plant, the multi-application small light water reactor has much lower ratings in terms of thermal rating. so it's much smaller in terms of concerns in stresses on your materials. The coolant pressure will operate about 50% that of a typical pressurized water reactor. And steam pressure is fairly low. It's again, about 200 psi for a off-the-shelf turbine. No feed water heaters, no moisture separator heaters. The idea is that we can increase the efficiency of these designs by using it in multiple applications. So it could be power production as well as district heating, things like that. We're looking at a single-stage condensate feed water pump, and you can replace the entire turbine generator set as one unit. So it is a much, much simpler system that we're talking about. The second aspect of it is its safety. We have incorporated these passively safe systems as part of our design, and these are very simple. They work, again, on gravity, so as long as you have that gravity providing natural circulation cooling, this plant will remain safe. It implements a high-pressure containment. It'll be the only high-pressure containment designs in the world. All the refueling for this plant is done off-site. This is a completely sealed system, so it arrives to the site completely sealed. You never open it up for refueling on-site. There's no reason to ever remove the fuel from that system on-site, and it gets shipped back to a central location where it would be refueled in a secure area. So this is a new type of reactor. It's called a no on-site refueling type of a design. The safety of the plant is enhanced because it's lower operating parameters and thermal rating. Less piping, valves, and components significantly reduce the cost for this design. The security of the design is one that we've considered quite a bit in this design. Again, I mentioned no on-site refueling. There's no reason to ever access the fuel, the nuclear material, while it's on site. The module never needs to be opened on site. We can transfer that module to an off-site location where it can be refueled. But the fact that the containment is sealed also offers us a new opportunity for security. In these high-tech days, remote sensing is a fact. It's very easy to do remote sensing. Well, we're looking at a design that if you open up that containment on site, the world would know it because it can be sensed remotely. It's a very low-profile reactor building. So we're looking at a reactor building which, again, looks like a commercial building. Now, in terms of the size of the reactors, we're looking at about 35 to 50 megawatts electric. So about 50 megawatts electric could take care of about 40,000 to 50,000 homes. So we are looking at a small community that this could power with one of these modules. That's very exciting. The other part of it is that in terms of the world community, we're finding that the United Nations has actually approached us as part of the IEA, and they've asked us to study this some more. So we're doing some testing right now at Oregon State University using a scaled version of this design to look at the passive safety features of this design. Last September, we had technical delegates from 17 nations come to Corvallis, little Corvallis, to talk about this design. The economy of the design we think is exceptional. We're looking at a total busbar cost of around 3.4 cents per kilowatt hour. That was the cost that was generated by Bechtel. They are also by Nexent, which works with Bechtel, the architect engineer. So we're looking at one of the lowest costs on the grid if we can get this out. The plant can be built in small increments to match the demand. And so as a result, you can bootstrap your way up. One module, you buy one module, you get it going, you use the revenues from that to buy another module, and you can actually increase your way up. So there's lots of features to this design that we're excited about. And the testing that's gone on at OSU with this design is continuing. We find that it works very, very well. And we're very open to you to come for a tour sometime, not all at once, of course. But you're certainly most welcome to visit the laboratory at the Oregon State University, and I would be glad to give you a tour of that. But with that, I think we need to move on to get to the questions.
Our first question today will be asked by board host Carla Kelly. Carla is chair of the Friday Forum Program Committee. She's a member of the Board of Governors, and she was recognized last year as Member of the Year of City Club. She currently serves as General Counsel for the Port of Portland. Carla.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you very much to our research panel. These were really exciting and fascinating forms of energy that you're talking about and research that's going on here. My guess is that they're also very, very expensive to do research on, and so my question is actually about the money. Who is funding these alternative forms of energy? Do you depend for funds entirely on the federal government? Do we have state funds going into this, or are there private entities that are really paying for this? And if you want to talk about who might end up owning them, that would be of interest as well.
I'll go ahead and start off with wave energy. We've been fortunate to receive funding from the National Science Foundation, in addition to Oregon Sea Grant, and our utilities here in Oregon, Central Lincoln, PUD, through BPA, PGE. Also, we have gotten a lot of state leaders excited about wave energy, and so we're looking also to receive some matching state funds. And also industry. Industry has begun to look at this as really a very nice set of emerging industries here in Oregon. And we are also very open to other contributors. You can imagine, we talk about our wave energy potentials being tremendous, but also our students here in Oregon. They are our biggest resource, and it's a tremendous privilege to work with them. And they are so excited about this because they see this as really enabling them to make a strong impact on our energy future. And as funding comes in, it means we can bring on more graduate students, more undergraduates to grow the program and accelerate wave energy here in Oregon and for the nation. Thank you.
We have a similar situation with regards to the nuclear research. We've been funded by the Department of Energy, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Westinghouse has been a big funder of the AP 1000 work. And the fact of the matter is that without their research support, we couldn't build these test facilities. And our students couldn't get to work with, would not be able to work with state-of-the-art instrumentation, state-of-the-art equipment. So these labs have become much more than just research tools. They've become teaching tools. And so we benefit. The state of Oregon has benefited very much from the research that we're doing because it does provide access to our students to the state-of-the-art technology.
When I first started doing this work about 6 or 7 years ago, there really wasn't very much, if any, funding available from the federal government. I won a couple of awards while I was at Yale that gave me some money that I could use for any purpose. And so I got a graduate student started on these things. And then last year, we received a grant for almost $1 million from the U.S. Department of Energy to support our work. There's a larger project that we want to do that we call the Ananke project that I would be happy to tell you about. And we're looking for bigger funding to support that, but that would be to create a critiqued prototype of an integrated solar biohydrogen energy system that would include production of hydrogen storage and conversion of the hydrogen to electricity.
I'd ask that members identify themselves. Questions are 30 seconds or less. And please identify which of the members of the panel you'd like to direct your question to.
Don Gale, President of Gale Associates. Dr. Ely, I've heard you speak before. I'm very interested how you bring up about solar energy. My parents were refugees to this country, and we had a farm. We had 3 windmills. Been around for years, but we were told they were very unattractive. My grandfather fought it and refused to take it down. What has happened to solar energy? I built a collector for my house for less than $100, and it took care of our house. All you need is some Coca-Cola cans and a shell. What has happened?
What is happening to solar energy? Well, you know, there's a lot going on in the development of newer photovoltaic materials, the thin films, and there's a thing called a Gretzel cell that's using biological dyes as solar energy absorbers. So there's a lot of research going on in that area, but the silicone-based materials are still pretty expensive, and I don't follow that area a lot, but I understand there's also been some difficulty in getting enough of it.
Just one thing. I was told that major corporations are squelching it because it's not right for the right person.
Steve Novick, City Club member. Some of us have concluded that global warming forces us to reconsider nuclear energy, even if disposing of the waste means writing off pieces of the planet, because you're better off writing off pieces of it than all of it. But of course, many people would rather write off none of it at all. So in that spirit, I'd like to ask both of our non-nuclear panelists, what percentage of the world's energy needs do you envision being met by your favorite technology in the year 2030?
For wave energy, we talked about the potential that we have, and off the Oregon coast even, just, 13,000 megawatt raw potential. Now it's up to the engineers to be able to harness that in a very responsible way and a very efficient way. And looking at the type of percentages, we would like to see wave energy climbing to the 5, 10, 15%. As you can imagine, we are where wind energy was 15 to 20 years ago. So it takes a little bit of catch-up time, but we are confident that our advanced technologies are going to enable us to catch up a little faster. But it means we are at higher costs now. And so that also means we need some production tax credits for development of wave energy. But those are the type of percentages we're looking at in the next decades.
You've invited us to do what I said I didn't think any of us could do, and that is to project ahead 25 years and imagine what's going to be coming. I would say that the speed with which these technologies develop, especially the solar biohydrogen technologies, really depends on the amount of research support that we get, and it's really hard to get. We have estimated that with an appropriate level of support, we could get to a critiqued prototype of this integrated device within 5 to 7 years, and commercialization of a rudimentary device within probably 3 to 5 years after that. The phase-in period, the transition period, is anybody's guess, but eventually I think that they will be a very sizable portion of the energy market.
Ginny Peckinpah, City Club member. I have two questions, one related to the nuclear technology and one related to hydrogen. In terms of nuclear, it was alluded to, but you didn't speak at all to the nuclear waste issue, and I'd like to hear about that. The other piece is that in terms of manufacturing the units, it seems like it still relies on industrial technology in terms of manufacturing components that require high heat and that kind of thing, as opposed to the more biomimicry technologies that are coming that really mimic nature. So that's my question there. In terms of hydrogen, and I'm about as far from a scientist as you can get, so forgive me if this is really a stupid question, but since the byproduct is water, I mean, yes, one of our biggest issues we face is related to energy, but there are also the impending water wars. So can hydrogen technology produce water that can be useful for human needs and other needs?
Well, with regard to the nuclear waste issue, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm very pleased with the direction that the United States is now seeming to go towards. Currently the plan was to take commercial fuel and dispose of it at Yucca Mountain. Now, you need to distinguish between military waste, which is back from the 1940s, it's a previous generation of waste, and commercial nuclear waste from nuclear power plants. What we see now is there's a new program, which just announced about 6 months ago, called the Global Nuclear Energy Partnership. And that is focusing on how we handle nuclear waste and recycle nuclear waste. And I think that's the direction that eventually we'll be going. And the benefit from that is that instead of having to worry about fuel for 100,000 years, which most engineers look at that and just think it's crazy, we're talking about a system with actinide burners, a system that says, now we only have to worry about stuff for 130 years. So be looking out for, when you hear about nuclear fuel recycling, be looking for that new technology. This is not a technology that is beyond our means. The French, of course, have been recycling for many, many years, so has Japan and so has Great Britain. What's different now is that now the United States is looking at doing something similar, and I think the cycle that we'll develop will actually be superior. So feel free to ask about nuclear waste, but I think the answers you're going to be hearing more, you'll be hearing more and more about uranium recycling. Okay? And there was another question?
Yeah, the short answer to your question is no. The hydrogen that would be used to make water has to come from someplace to begin with. And so theoretically, if you were getting that hydrogen from a hydrocarbon, which is how most hydrogen is produced today, you could convert it to water, and so you could realize some net production of water. But what's going to happen eventually is that the water will be the source of the hydrogen, and then the hydrogen will go back to being water. So.
I'm sorry to say we're out of time. If you'd like to continue the discussion, please go to the website and join the discussion on the Citizens blog. I'd like to really thank our guests for being here today and for sharing your knowledge with us and for being part of the solution. Thank you very much, and I hope you will stick around and be here to hear from others. Yes. Good. And I'd like to thank our members and guests for being here. Again, we'd invite those of you who are guests to please join City Club. I want to thank our radio and TV audiences for your interest in City Club. We are adjourned.
Thank you.